My plan to confront my cheating husband and walk out the door forever came to a screeching halt when a stranger showed up at my doorstep. He was the husband of my husband's mistress, and he offered me $200 million with one bizarre condition. Wait 100 days before filing for divorce. What was the real plan behind this insane offer? Before the story begins, let me know in the comments where you're all tuning in from. Don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can continue to grow and bring you even more compelling stories. The fog rolling in from the San Francisco Bay that evening seemed to mirror the haze clouding my mind. I stood frozen in the master bathroom of our Pacific Heights mansion, staring at my husband's iPad that he had carelessly left on the marble counter. The screen was still unlocked, displaying an email thread that shattered everything I thought I knew about my marriage. The subject line read, "Our anniversary trip. Can't wait, babe." But our anniversary wasn't for another 6 months, and I certainly hadn't planned any trip. I scrolled through the messages with trembling fingers. Photos of a luxury resort in Bali, confirmation for a couple's suite, and worst of all, intimate messages between my husband Ryan and someone named Natasha. I told my clueless wife I have a conference in Seattle next week. She believed every word. God, she's so naive it's almost sad. Clueless, naive, sad. Those words burned into my soul like a branding iron. I'm Mia Chen, 32 years old, former corporate attorney who gave up a promising career at one of the biggest law firms in California because my husband said he needed me to support his tech startup from home. I had graduated top of my class from Stanford Law. I had been on partnership track, but Ryan convinced me that his dreams were our dreams, and foolish me, I believed him. For 5 years, I had been the perfect wife. I managed our household, hosted dinner parties for his investors, smiled for photos at tech conferences, and slowly watched my own identity disappear into the role of Ryan Mitchell's wife. And this was my reward. I heard the front door open downstairs. My husband was home from another late night at the office. At least that's what he always told me. Now I knew exactly where he had been. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to march downstairs and throw this iPad in his lying face. To demand answers, to watch him squirm as his perfect facade crumbled. But before I could move, the doorbell rang. I heard Ryan's footsteps pause, then redirect toward the front door. Voices murmured below. Then my husband's voice, suddenly nervous. "Mia, can you come down here?" I wiped my eyes quickly, shoved the iPad back where I found it, and descended the curved staircase. My legs felt like they were made of lead. Standing in our foyer was a man I had never seen before. He was tall, perhaps 6'2", with the kind of sharp features that belonged on magazine covers. His dark hair was slightly disheveled from the wind outside, and his charcoal suit probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold. They were ice blue and utterly devoid of warmth, scanning our home with the detached assessment of someone calculating property values. "Mia, this is Alexander Kane," my husband said, his voice unnaturally high. He's an investor, interested in the company." The stranger's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Actually, I'm here to speak with your wife." Ryan's face went pale. "What? Why would you need to talk to Mia?" Alexander Kane ignored him completely, his glacier eyes locked onto mine with unsettling intensity. "Mrs. Mitchell, I believe we have mutual interest to discuss. May I have a moment of your time? Privately?" "Now wait just a minute," Ryan started, puffing up his chest in that way he always did when he felt threatened. "Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of me. I'm her husband. Are you?" Alexander's voice was soft but carried the weight of a sledgehammer. How very interesting, because my wife seems to think otherwise. The color drained from Ryan's face so fast I thought he might faint. I don't know what you're talking about." "Natasha Kine. Ring any bells?" Alexander pulled out his phone and showed us a photo. A stunning blonde woman with a smile I had seen in countless of my husband's supposedly work-related photos. "She's been quite busy lately." "Mostly with you, Mr. Mitchell." Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. No words came out. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt nothing but a cold, hollow emptiness expanding in my chest. "I'll speak with you, Mr. Kane," I heard myself say. My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. "Ryan, go upstairs." "Mia, honey, I can explain everything." "Upstairs. Now." Something in my tone must have penetrated his panic because he actually listened, slinking up the stairs like a scolded dog. I didn't watch him go. I kept my eyes fixed on the stranger who had just detonated a bomb in my living room. "Follow me," I said, leading him to the study. Once inside with the door closed, I turned to face him. "How long have you known?" "6 months," he replied, settling into an armchair without asking permission. "Possibly longer. My people are still investigating." "Your people?" "I'm Alexander Kane. Kane Capital. We manage about 40 billion in assets across various sectors." He said it matter-of-factly, without arrogance, as if reciting the weather forecast. "Background checks on everyone in my orbit are standard procedure, including my wife's extracurricular activities." I knew the name now. Kane Capital was legendary in Silicon Valley. They had backed 3 of the biggest tech unicorns in the last decade. Alexander Kane was considered a genius, a visionary, and by most accounts, absolutely ruthless. "If you've known for 6 months, why are you here now? Why tell me?" Alexander leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "Because I need something from you, Mrs. Mitchell, and I'm willing to pay handsomely for it." He reached into his jacket and produced a check. He placed it on the coffee table between us and slid it toward me. I looked down. The number made my heart stop. $200 million. "What is this for?" I whispered. "Your patience," he said simply. "I need you to stay married to your husband for 100 more days. No confrontation, no divorce filing, no indication whatsoever that you know about the affair. In return, that money is yours, free and clear." I stared at him like he had lost his mind. "You want me to pretend everything is fine while my husband is sleeping with your wife? For 100 days? Precisely." "Why?" Alexander stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the city lights, twinkling through the fog. "My wife's family owns significant shares in several companies I'm currently acquiring. If I divorce her now, or if this scandal becomes public, those deals fall apart. Billions in potential value, gone. Not to mention the hit to my reputation as someone who can't even control his own household." He turned back to face me. "Your husband is drowning in debt, Mrs. Mitchell. His startup is a house of cards. He's been stealing from his investors to fund his lifestyle and his affair with my wife. Within 90 days, Kane Capital will legally own every asset he has, including the ones he thinks are hidden. You're going to destroy him. I'm going to acquire him." Destruction is simply a byproduct. His eyes met mine. "The question is, do you want to be collateral damage in that destruction, or do you want to be standing on my side of the battlefield when the smoke clears?" My mind raced through the implications. If I divorced Ryan now, I would be entitled to half of his assets. But if those assets were actually debts in disguise, I would get nothing except the humiliation of being the naive wife who never saw it coming. But if I waited, if I let Alexander Kane orchestrate whatever chess game he was playing— "You said my husband has been stealing," I said slowly. "From investors. That's a federal crime, among many others. Wire fraud, securities violations. He forged your signature 3 weeks ago to use your family's property in Napa as collateral for a loan he never told you about." The world tilted. My grandmother's vineyard. The only thing I had left from my family. Ryan had stolen it from me without my knowledge. "I want proof," I said, my voice harder now. "Everything you have on him." Alexander smiled. For the first time, it almost reached his eyes. "I was hoping you'd say that." He pulled out a tablet and handed it to me. The files were meticulously organized, bank statements showing transfers to accounts I never knew existed, forged documents with my signature, receipts for jewelry I had never received, vacations I had never taken, all for Natasha. "The vineyard," I said. "Can I get it back?" "After the 100 days, I will personally ensure that property is returned to you, along with everything else he's taken." That's my promise. I looked at the check again. $200 million. Enough to secure my future forever. Enough to help my mother, who had been struggling since my father's death. Enough to start over. 100 days, I said. And you swear that at the end of this, Ryan will lose everything. Everything, and more. He won't just lose his company and his money, Mrs. Mitchell. He'll lose his freedom. The evidence I've gathered will bury him. I picked up the check. The paper felt surprisingly ordinary for something worth so much. Do we have a deal? Alexander extended his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm and cool. We have a deal. That night, I learned to be someone I had never been before. A performer, a deceiver. Ryan came to bed reeking of guilt and fear, stumbling over explanations about Alexander Kane being a potential investor who had some concerns about the company. I pretended to believe him. I let him hold me in the darkness while my skin crawled with revulsion. 100 days. I could survive anything for 100 days. The weeks that followed were the most challenging of my life. Every morning, I woke up beside a man I now despised and forced myself to smile. I cooked his favorite meals. I laughed at his jokes. I attended his insufferable networking events and charmed his equally insufferable colleagues. But behind the scenes, I was transforming. Alexander and I met secretly twice a week, always in different locations. A private room at a members-only club in the financial district, a yacht anchored in the bay, a penthouse suite in a hotel where he owned the entire top floor. He taught me things I had forgotten during my years of domestic exile. How to read financial statements for hidden red flags, how to identify shell companies, how to think 3 moves ahead of your opponent. You're a natural, he said one afternoon as I correctly identified a fraudulent transaction in one of his test cases. It's a shame you gave up law. You have the mind for it. My husband said his career was more important, that we couldn't both be working 80-hour weeks. Alexander's jaw tightened. And you believed him? I loved him. Or I thought I did. I sipped my espresso, watching the sailboats glide across the bay. Love makes people stupid. Love is just another word for vulnerability, Alexander replied. And vulnerability is a liability in business and in life. I studied his profile. The man was impossible to read. Even after weeks of working closely together, I knew almost nothing about his inner world. He was all strategy and calculation, like a chess grandmaster who saw human beings as pieces on a board. Is that what your marriage to Natasha was? A liability? His eyes flickered. For just a moment, I saw something beneath the ice. Pain, maybe, or regret. My marriage to Natasha was a merger between 2 families. Her father controlled shipping lanes I needed access to. My family had the capital his business required. We both knew exactly what we were getting into. He paused. What I didn't anticipate was how completely she would betray the terms of our agreement. The affair. The affair is almost secondary. It's the theft that concerns me more. She's been funneling company funds to your husband for over a year, helping him build his little empire on a foundation of fraud. So they weren't just lovers, they were co-conspirators. What happens to her after the 100 days? I asked. She'll be dealt with, legally and financially. By the time my lawyers are finished, she won't have enough money to buy herself lunch. I should have felt some satisfaction at that. Instead, I felt a strange emptiness. Natasha and Ryan deserved whatever was coming to them, but their destruction wouldn't rebuild what they had broken. It wouldn't give me back the years I had wasted or the career I had sacrificed. As if reading my thoughts, Alexander said, "You know, there's a position opening at Kane Capital, head of corporate compliance. It would require someone with legal expertise and an intimate understanding of how fraud operates." I looked at him sharply. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you a future. Whether you want it is up to you." That night, lying awake while Ryan snored beside me, I allowed myself to imagine it. A corner office overlooking the city. Meaningful work that challenged my mind. A life that was entirely my own. 63 days remaining. The breaking point came on day 72. Ryan had been increasingly paranoid for weeks. His business was hemorrhaging money, investors were asking questions he couldn't answer, and through it all, I maintained my performance as the loving, oblivious wife. But that evening, he came home drunk and furious. A major deal had fallen through. Someone was buying up all his debts, circling his company like a shark. "It's that bastard Kane," he slurred, pacing our living room. "He's trying to destroy me. I know it." I kept my face neutral. "Why would Alexander Kane care about your company, honey? You're not even in the same league." "Wrong thing to say." Ryan's eyes went dark. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh. "What the hell is that supposed to mean? You think I'm nothing, don't you? Just like everyone else." "Ryan, you're hurting me. You have no idea what I've built, what I've sacrificed, while you sit here in your comfortable little life, spending my money, judging me." "Your money?" The words escaped before I could stop them. 5 years of suppressed anger finally broke through. "I gave up everything for you, my career, my identity, everything. And you've been stealing from me this whole time. Forging my signature, using my family's property." I froze. Too late. I had said too much. Ryan's grip loosened. His drunk rage transformed into something colder, more dangerous. "How do you know about that?" I saw documents. In your office. I wasn't snooping. They were just, "You've been talking to Kaine." It wasn't a question. "That's why he's been at our house. That's why he wanted to speak with you privately." "No, Ryan, I swear." He raised his hand. I flinched, bracing for impact, but the blow never came. Instead, the front door exploded inward with a deafening crash. Alexander Kane stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 men built like professional linebackers. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "Take your hand off her," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "Now." Ryan released me immediately, stumbling backward. "Kane, how did you—" "I have people watching this house around the clock." Alexander stepped inside, his eyes never leaving Ryan. When I saw the confrontation escalating, I came immediately. He looked at me, his gaze softening almost imperceptibly. "Are you all right?" I nodded, rubbing my arm where Ryan's fingers had left marks. "You're sleeping with my wife," Ryan spat, finding his courage now that he wasn't alone with me. "That's what this is about. You're stealing her from me, like you're stealing my company." Alexander laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "Your wife has been far more valuable to me as an ally than she ever was to you as a partner. But you're too stupid to understand that, aren't you, Mitchell? Get out of my house." "Actually, this house belongs to Mia's grandmother's estate, the same estate you illegally mortgaged without authorization." Alexander produced a document from his jacket. "As of 4 o'clock this afternoon, Kane Capital purchased that mortgage, which means this house now belongs to me. You have 72 hours to vacate." Ryan's face went white. "You can't do this." "I already have, and that's just the beginning." Alexander turned to me. "Mrs. Mitchell, would you like to accompany me? I have a guest suite prepared. You don't need to spend another night in this man's presence." I looked at my husband. The man I had loved. The man I had sacrificed everything for. He looked small now. Pathetic. A scared little boy who had been caught with his hand in the cookie jar. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready to leave." I walked past Ryan without a backward glance. Outside, a black car waited. Alexander held the door open for me. "The 100 days aren't finished yet," I said as we drove away. "We had a deal. The deal was for you to stay married. Not to stay in that house and risk your safety." He paused. "I should have intervened sooner. I apologize." It was the first time I had heard Alexander Kane apologize for anything. "What happens now?" "Now we accelerate the timeline. Your husband made a critical error tonight. He threatened you in a home that legally belongs to me, on camera." He held up his phone, showing security footage of Ryan grabbing my arm. "That's assault. Combine it with the financial crimes, and he's looking at serious prison time." The final confrontation happened 28 days later. Alexander had organized an emergency board meeting for Ryan's company under the pretense of discussing acquisition terms. What Ryan didn't know was that the SEC had already been alerted. Federal agents were waiting outside the building. I sat in the back of the conference room, invisible to everyone except Alexander. Ryan stood at the head of the table, sweating through his expensive shirt, trying to negotiate terms he didn't realize had already been decided. When Alexander revealed that he had acquired majority control of the company and that all of Ryan's fraud had been documented for federal prosecutors, my husband's face went through every stage of grief in about 10 seconds. Denial. This is a setup. A hostile takeover. It's not legal. Anger. I'll sue you. I'll destroy you. You can't do this to me. Bargaining. Look, we can work something out. Whatever you want. Money. Shares. Just name your price. Depression. This can't be happening. My whole life. And finally, acceptance. When the FBI agents entered the room and placed him in handcuffs, Ryan looked at me for the first time since the meeting began. You, he whispered, you did this. I stood up slowly. Every eye in the room was on me as I walked toward him. No, I said softly, you did this to yourself. I just watched. They led him away. The room erupted in chaos. Board members shouted questions. Lawyers scribbled notes. Phones rang off the hook. But I felt only peace. It was over. 3 months after Ryan's arrest, I sat in my new corner office at Kane Capital, overlooking the San Francisco skyline. The fog had lifted, revealing a crystal-clear view of the Bay Bridge glittering in the morning sun. My grandmother's vineyard was back in my name. My mother's debts were paid. Ryan was awaiting trial, likely facing 7 to 10 years for fraud and embezzlement. Natasha had been stripped of everything in her divorce from Alexander, reduced to selling her designer handbags on consignment just to pay rent. And me? I was building a new life, one that belonged entirely to myself. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. Alexander stood in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. May I? Since when do you knock? He smiled. Something he did more often now. At least around me. I'm learning. He handed me a cup and settled into the chair across from my desk. For a moment, we simply sat in comfortable silence, watching the city wake up below. I've been thinking, he said finally. Our business arrangement has concluded. Your 100 days were up weeks ago. You have no contractual obligation to continue working here. Are you firing me? I'm asking why you stayed. I considered the question. The truth was complicated. Part of it was the work itself, which challenged me in ways I had desperately missed. Part of it was the satisfaction of rebuilding my professional reputation. But there was another reason, one I hadn't fully admitted to myself until now. Because, I said slowly, somewhere between the secret meetings and the corporate espionage and the dramatic takedown of my cheating ex-husband, I started to actually like spending time with you. Alexander's expression was unreadable. Is that so? Don't let it go to your head. You're still the most emotionally unavailable person I've ever met. I'm working on that too. He set down his coffee cup and leaned forward. Mia, I came here today to ask you something. And I need you to understand that this isn't a business proposal. There's no contract, no negotiation, just a question. My heart rate quickened. What's the question? Would you have dinner with me tonight? Not as business associates. Not as co-conspirators in a revenge scheme, just as 2 people who might want to see where this goes. I thought about everything we had been through, the manipulation, the deception, the ruthlessness. Alexander Kane was dangerous. He played people like chess pieces. He destroyed his enemies without mercy. But he had also protected me when I was vulnerable. He had seen my potential when I had forgotten it myself. And beneath all that ice, I had glimpsed something real. One condition, I said. Name it. No more secrets. If we're going to try this, we do it honestly. No hidden agendas, no strategic calculations. Just us. Alexander extended his hand across my desk. Deal. I shook it. Holding on a moment longer than necessary. Pick me up at 7. And Alexander? Yes? Don't be late. He smiled. A real smile this time, one that crinkled the corners of his eyes and transformed his entire face. "I have all the time in the world, Mia. For you, I'll always have time." As I watched him leave, I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't felt in years: hope. Not the naive hope of my younger self, who believed love would conquer all. This was something stronger, the hope of a woman who had walked through fire and emerged on the other side, scarred but unbroken. Ryan had tried to reduce me to nothing. Instead, he had set me free. And now, standing in the ruins of my old life, I was finally ready to build something new.